welcome to Mystere Creations. As usual, I'm your host, AJ. Today I'm speaking with John Brooks. He is a wildlife biologist and seeker of environmental and social justice. I feel very strongly about this interview. It speaks to topics which are hugely important. Some of the subjects will be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, my name is John Brooks. I was born in Oakland, California, and at an early age, I was interested in all things natural. I watched all the wildlife shows growing up in the 60s and 70s, and I sort of knew I wanted to have a career in something related to that. So I majored in wildlife biology at the University of Montana, and I graduated in 1981. I was fortunate enough to get a career with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service as a wildlife biologist or refuge manager, and then later in the field of law enforcement as a wildlife inspector, computer forensics specialist, and special agent, which is sort of like a criminal investigator. Mm-hmm. And I retired from that in 2008. And I continued my other interests. Well, I continued my interest in wildlife. I started an organization called the Nepal Tiger Project, which is a presence absence study in the foothills of the Himalayas for tigers, population that is said to be extinct, but I'm pretty sure they're still there. Mm-hmm. But then I also followed my interest in music and art, writing children's books about conservation, playing music about jazz, blues, and things of that nature, because from the city. Yeah. Then created another organization called ClimateCon to sort of address the climate issue on what the average person can do to help. So it's sort of like blending the conservation field with the tech industry to come up with real world solutions on what we can do to make things right.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about ClimateCon and how people can participate, support it?
Sure. So I co-founded that with a gentleman from Silicon Valley, and this was just before the pandemic hit. We were sort of loosely patterning after Comic-Con, which is a phenomenon down here in San Diego where people come for the comic book conventions and all the movies and stuff, and it's really an engaging event. And so people come down, they dress up, they share information on their favorite characters, all that. And ClimateCon's not about that, but the fact that bringing people together and participating in seminars and talks that professionals would give on site is kind of what we wanted to do. So we were trying to get people to come down here and had it all set up. It was going to be the Del Mar Fairgrounds, set up in a sustainable way. You had to come if you're going to participate in some form that's sustainable, meaning you couldn't run a combustion engine to get down here or fly an airplane. And we were going to have, and this is before like Zoom and all that stuff got popular, have breakout rooms for people who are for overseas or different places where they can participate in 2D and 3D environments, and then present their ideas on which they were working on throughout the year on new technologies that people can use, whether it's something like an app on your smartphone that, because we look at our phones 15 times an hour, maybe it measures your retinal to determine if you're high risk for glaucoma or something like that, or it measures your pulse and things of that nature, or it measures how much CO2 you're using on a daily basis. There's so many things out there that are possible, but because we're not talking to each other, we're not able to implement these. So ClimateCon was to do that, but the pandemic hit, so we had to put it on hold. And now it's just, we're trying to gather traction on it again to just do it all virtually and have people input on what they think can be done to help. Because I was a politician too. I should have said that. I ran for Congress twice down here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And government is just not going to do it fast enough to save humanity. So it's really up to us, because their interests lie where people are funding them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. So that's just the way things are. And so they're reluctant to move too quickly because in the minds of humans, we have time. But the truth is we don't, because we don't see imminent danger. Like say with the pandemic, where people are dying in front of you, you can't point to someone who has died of the climate crisis, right?
Yeah.
Or global warming. You can't point to that. So ClimateCon is to try to get us together and just say, okay, we're going to take matters in our own hands and do what we can on our own, to quote Star Wars, the Rebel Alliance.
The Rebel Alliance, yeah.
Yeah.
Nepal Tiger Project. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that came about by accident. I was in Mexico at a workshop that was totally unrelated to wildlife, but the teacher, who is German, lives in Nepal, and she's married to a Nepalese guy. And she said, "Oh yeah, after this, we're going to go back to Nepal because there's this plant called the Arua plant that I think grows above 1,700 meters, but all the literature says it only grows 1,000. I want to look at it, and we have to bring armed guards with us because there's tigers and the rebels." And I go, whoa, wait a minute. So because I was in law enforcement, because I'm a biologist, I just said, okay, some cop with a gun is going to shoot anything they see. And so I wanted to go prevent that.
Yeah.
So I invited myself to go on the trip, and she said, "Oh, this is great, da, 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 da." And so I went, but at the time I knew nothing about Nepal. So I didn't know what area she was talking about. And it turns out the area she was talking about tigers have been extinct for 30 years. So there really was no real risk of seeing them. But after talking to the local villagers up in this area, tigers are still present. Now, these are people who aren't educated, have never seen a book, but they live in this environment, and they know their environment, and they describe tigers, animals with stripes. There's only two species that have stripes. That's a zebra and a tiger. So and it wasn't a leopard. And coincidentally, a tiger, according to this one lady, had just killed her calf. And so I brought that information out to the World Wildlife Fund in Kathmandu, and then some other organizations around the world when I got back, but no one seemed interested in following up on it because they basically said these people don't know what they're talking about. And so I decided to start my own organization because I did believe them. And if tigers are that endangered, which they are, I think there's something like 3,300 left in the wild. Yeah. And this is worth looking up on, because if this is an isolated population, that means new genetic material for the whole species.
Which is very important.
Very important. And it also means, because there hasn't been any tiger deaths or deaths of humans by tigers in this area, bear attacks are the only thing that happen. And if that's the case, and they are tigers, that means that the humans in this area are still seen as part of the natural ecosystem. Yeah. Which means they still see the human as a top predator. So it will be humans, tigers, leopards, and bears, and then all these lower animals. And I find that fascinating. And in all my interviews, I know you didn't ask for all this, but sorry.
It's cool.
In all my interviews with people who have encountered tigers up there, the tiger always ran away. And if you try to duplicate that in areas where you have tiger reserves or just reserves, Africa or India or wherever, where the tigers are used to being next to humans, they lose their fear of humans. And that's why you're getting people attacked by tigers who live right up next to the reserve. They see them every day. You step out of your car, you're dead, type of thing, because you're food to them now. But up there, that's not the case. So yeah, that project is an ongoing 6-year project. And unfortunately, it is very difficult to work with developing nations. So I was never able to secure permits under their law, their rules, to collect scat and to set up camera traps. I mean, I'd done it, but that's before I knew I needed a permit. And then once I needed a permit, they just didn't give it to me. Oh. I don't know why. And so, like, even collecting scat, if I found scat with footprints that, they're not conclusive, they're in the area of, okay, this is more likely a tiger, it could be a leopard, but we need to do DNA analysis to find out. Yeah. But I wasn't able to collect that scat and take it out to analyze it. So I'm still in limbo. And then, of course, the pandemic didn't help that either. So.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah. It makes everything more difficult.
It's so sad because I say I know they're there, but I don't. I'm a scientist. I want to find out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But let me go through the whole process of analyzing that. Yeah. And I'm stuck. So.
governments should allow you to help them out, because having a viable tiger population in that area that could contribute to the genetic pool for that animal would be it would be a draw. It would draw attention to the country, perhaps get them funding to support the people in those areas, because people really enjoy tigers.
Right. On so many levels, it's a win-win. And Nepal is the only country that has shown an increase in tiger populations every time they do the tiger census. But no country has shown coexistence of humans and tigers. And the local people get it. The people I'm working with up there in the Himalaya Mountains, they get it, and they started their own nonprofit that partnered with my nonprofit. So all of the duties and responsibilities and income that would be derived would go to that nonprofit, not mine, because I'm not trying to take over.
Yeah.
I'm trying to assist. And they're totally down with it. And it's just, and I had high level meetings with some government officials, but their government kept changing. And then you have to start over again, which is just sad.
That's problematic, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's on hold now, but hopefully I'll be able to return and gather some evidence. It'll be earth-shattering news if I'm right about what I think's on up there. That's so significant to the survival of the species. It's on so many levels.
It is,
but I tried.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, you're doing your bit. Hopefully, the rest of us can do our bit and support you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah. For those unfamiliar with climate change inequality, it's disproportionate. People that are in impoverished areas are usually the greatest impacted by it. And it's not just in poorer countries, it's in the wealthier countries as well. Can you tell us some of your experience with climate inequality and some ways that people can help fight it?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's the upper 10% of the world, meaning as far as money, riches, they create most of the pollution. And like you were saying, the impoverished people of the world are bearing the brunt of what those rich people are doing. And it's not just in poor countries like Bangladesh, which is going underwater, or some of the island nations like Fiji, which are going underwater, and you're going to be creating climate refugees coming to this country, to North America or Europe. And then once that happens, where they end up is in the poor communities, because the rich communities don't want them. And so now you're creating more stress on those communities fighting for resources, who've already been sort of disenfranchised with the system because it's not working for them, and it probably will never. And I think they realize that. So they some of them check out. But more to your question, let's say here in San Diego, California, where I am, you've got there's programs out there. I think each city has it where you can see the weather or the air index, the quality of the air index in your area. And so in San Diego, it breaks it out into little counties and townships. I don't know what to call it. And you can see in the poor communities, the air is totally much, much worse than in the more affluent areas. And this is the same city. And you say, how's that happen? Well, California is a city, California is a state, and San Diego is a city that you have to have a car to get around.
Yeah.
Public transportation is terrible, and there seems to be no incentive to make it better, like you have in Europe, where you can get on a trolley or train and go to work and not be dependent on a car. Here, it's not the case. You have to have a car to get around. And so if you're worried about food, shelter, and clothing and transportation, and you're making the decision whether you're going to have a meal today or take your car into the shop to have it smogged or upgraded or oil changed, whatever, you're probably going to choose food.
Yeah.
And so cars aren't maintained as well. Therefore, they pollute more and putting more particulates in the air. They break down more. there's only like one person per car on the freeway for every, like, I don't know, 20 cars, 19 out of 20 cars probably have one occupant driving all the time. So carpooling is not a thing. We're into this individual lifestyle, which is sort of off track. But the point is, the poor countries don't have access to the thing the richer communities do, the poor communities. So you have more pollution, you have more of the industries like, heavy metals being utilized, whether it's a car industry or chrome plated plants or landfills, whatever. That's always in the poor areas. And it's just creating more of a toxic environment. And I don't think a lot of people realize that air pollution is like one of the top killers of humans in cities, but you don't see it. So, and you don't see the stats because maybe you had air pollution, but you died from emphysema or you contracted COVID-19 or something like that. And air pollution doesn't get the stat, but is totally a contributing factor.
It is. More should be done to make it more accessible with, to say what we're doing locally. A lot of our buses are now electric, and or hybrid, and that's one step. But it really, if we had a train system that could take people up island, there's a technology called Hyperloop. Have you looked into that at all?
100%, love it. Love it.
For in Canada, our highways are atrocious. The U.S. has much better roadways than we do. And even in the U.S., it would be beneficial to have that technology, even if it's just for shipping.
Right.
Because at 700 kilometers or 700 miles an hour, you can get a Hyperloop across the country in a day, whereas for us it takes 2 to 3 weeks for someone shipping from Nova Scotia to Victoria.
And that brings up a very interesting point because a lot of critics of, let's say, starting technology like that will say, well, if we do that, you're going to put people out of work and jobs, and then now this whole fear thing kicks in. Where the truth is, 80% of the jobs that we're doing today will be automated in the future within the next 10 years. So they're gone anyway. Yeah. And as far as trying to retrain people for tech jobs, that's not going to happen either. You need to come up with a new system to deal with societies. Yeah. And if you're going to use this person is going to lose their job, and that's why we're not going to build this. So we're going to keep polluting. That's just a poor excuse.
It is. Very poor excuse. Canada's greatest challenge is climate change. The complete loss of the Indigenous way of life is very real. What advice would you give people struggling with climate change to kind of be able to do something themselves?
Right. So humans, we have a propensity to, like we were talking earlier, shut down when they're overwhelmed with facts and figures and what to do, what not to do, and who to listen to, who not to listen to. The first thing I would have to say, because we all have this capability to do this, is educate yourself. Really, I mean, the internet is at your fingertips. You can look up things and then fact check it to see if what you're reading is true, or if someone tells you something. It's a friend of mine said this one time. It says humans would rather believe a well-told lie than cold hard facts because it sounds better, right?
It's true.
We like good stories. We're storytellers. I mean, that's why we watch films and read books and all that, because we like a good story. And if you're good at telling a story, whether it's factual or not, most people will tend to listen to it and not check up on it. So I would say, look at the facts. I mean, the IPCC report is very factual, it's very dry, but there's a summary there. You can just read it and see what the consequences are of inaction. That's number one. And then tell yourself, okay, it's still good. We've got time. We can do something about it. We're probably not going to be able to maintain the lifestyle we have now, but we can prevent it from going worse. So on a local level, I tell people this all the time. They don't want to hear it, but it's really something that we should 100% consider is we need to go to a plant-based diet. I mean, you say, oh, no, I can't give up my meat. I love my steak, da, 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 da. Yeah, okay. Well, you have a choice. I'm not saying not eat meat. I'm just saying if you don't stop, if we keep breeding cattle at the rate that we're doing, it's going to be irreparable damage because the methane that you're putting in the air, the land they're taking up, the amount of crops it takes to feed them just for 1 pound of meat it doesn't make sense. And so you have to ask yourself, do I like my hamburger that much? And then I think you should ask yourself this question. And then you say, okay, what is it about the hamburger or steak I like? Is it the taste? Because if it's the taste, it's probably the things you're putting on it, which are plant-based, not the meat itself. If it's the texture, that's something else. Okay, I like the texture of meat. I like the way it tears. Da, 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 da. That's okay too. Yeah. And if you say, well, I can't stop. I can't go full vegetarian or vegan. Then make a deal with yourself. Make it a game. You and your family or you and your friends. Okay, we pledge to stop eating meat for 6 days out of 7. On the 7th day, we're going to treat ourselves. Okay, we get to have a hamburger. And over time, and you should start at just one. Don't say 4 days out of 5. Yeah. I'm going to eat meat because that's not doing anything. But you're going to see that slowly you're going to like, I guess I really don't miss it that much. I guess I didn't need it that much. And then maybe you'll see an improve your health, the way you feel, da, da, da. I'm not saying meat is bad. I'm just saying it is a large contributor to the climate changing. And that's something everybody can do because if you stop buying it, they'll stop making it.
True.
And the industries, whether it's gas, coal, oil, or the farming industry or big pharma, all that stuff, they only do things. It's motivated by profit.
Yeah.
So they have more power than us to stop things, but you have to say, I'm not going to participate in this anymore. And I guarantee you they'll stop. So it would be that. And I don't know what the recycling situation is in Canada. That's a very little thing. It makes people feel good. It's not really doing a lot, but it's something, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to recycle, you need to do it right. Here in the United States, people are lazy. They'll recycle some things. They won't clean out other things that are supposed to be clean, like a peanut butter jar. They'll just throw it in there. Well, if you do that, you're gumming up the works because when that gets to the plant, if it's an automated plant,
it
shuts it down. It throw out everything, not just yours, everything that's in there. So you just really caused a big mess.
Oh man,
you contributed. It's true, right? Yeah. So you have to make a decision. I don't use the word lazy, but I can't think of another word. Are you going to be lazy or are you going to work out? Like no pain, no gain. We used to say back in the 70s. You're going to work out. Don't just put on my clothes and stretch. Okay, I'm going home. And then why don't I see results on my body? Because you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes some sacrifice, but once you get going, it's like if you want to start jogging or working out or anything, once you start doing it, it becomes easier and then you look forward to it.
Yeah.
That's why it's easier for the children to do this than us because they were brought up with it. We weren't. It's hard to change as a human.
It is.
But if you make it second nature, it becomes easier.
Change is inevitable. We have to
100%.
We have to accept it and move with it rather than fight against it and buck against it.
Exactly.
That lesson is one of the hardest learned.
There's another small example of that sort of ties in. It's like, because this people I think can relate to the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
It's a disaster and everyone talks about, how sad these people died and da, 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 da. There could have been less loss of life if people would have got up and done something. For instance, when that hit the iceberg, the crew knew that it was going to sink.
Yeah.
And they tried to get everyone on, hey, let's get in the lifeboats, da, da, da. What they do, people waited because they didn't see the imminent danger. And then by the time they saw it, it was too late. And that's the same thing with climate change.
Yeah. This year, we definitely saw it here. Over $1 billion worth of damage. Several roadways were completely wiped out by flooding. Millions of acres of forests were burnt in fires.
Yeah, sad.
It is very sad. But I've seen people kind of pull together. And like a private business owner donated concrete to rebuild the roads in a week.
It's great.
In a week.
Wow.
If we can do that in a week, with the motivation to make sure that everyone is able to get food.
Sure.
We can do pretty much anything. And I think we need to really take stock of what we've done to the planet. And like you said, eating less meat. If you can't just go cold turkey, no meat, use meat as a condiment.
Exactly.
That's most of the developed world. That's what people do. They use meat as a condiment. It's there to add flavor and texture more than to be the mainstay.
Right.
In cooking Japanese food, that's very prevalent. It's a condiment. And textures in Korean cooking, texture is very important.
Right.
Indian food, same thing. Texture is very important. We need to kind of educate people on different foods. The food deserts. That's another thing.
It's huge down here. It's huge. I grew up in sort of a food desert, even though there was supermarkets in the part of Oakland I lived in. We always went to what's known as a liquor store to get food. Your mother would send you down there to get a pack of cigarettes with a note, or you would go down there for some candy or potato chips or something. For me, that's where food came from.
Yeah.
And that's part of the food desert because you only find those in poor and impoverished communities because of the alcohol consumption. And it's not real food.
No.
You won't find good food places or urban gardens and places like that. And people tend to not know what they are. And so they end up eating junk food, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, and things like that nature because it's cheaper and it satisfies them, but it's not really providing nutrition for them.
True. We watched a show the other day, and this lady, they showed her in the store, and she completely walked by the vegetable aisle without picking up any fresh vegetables. And it was more she didn't know how to cook this or how to work with it.
Yeah. It's learned behavior.
Yeah. And it shocked me because when I see in the South a lot of farmers who grew up, they could make food healthy. And we need to be able to transplant that into these food desert areas.
Right.
The Ron Finley project is an excellent project.
Oh yeah. He's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
You got pushback on that.
Yeah.
They didn't want to let him do it. It's crazy.
With climate change, that type of work is going to be very important.
Right.
Yeah, we need to kind of create programs for inner cities, like reusing spaces for planting gardens, because the food chain is going to be so sorely impacted by climate change. We're just seeing the beginning. Well, it's not really the beginning. We're in the middle of it now.
We're in the middle of it. Yeah. And there's no way we're going to be able to keep the global temperature below 1.5. It's going to be 2 or more.
Yes.
If it's at 3, we're pretty much, I was going to say doomed. I shouldn't say that word, but it's going to be so hard on humanity.
Yeah.
On so many levels. And Canada actually, I'm not saying this to make Canadians feel better, but you're in a better position because of the latitude where you are, closer to the equator. I mean, closer to the pole up there. You will feel the effects
less.
Yeah, but I don't want to say it because the pole, climate is changing faster in the poles than it is down here. Yeah. But as it changes, because I want to be clear that people don't misunderstand what I'm saying. As it changes, and as California becomes a desert, Canada, some parts of Canada are going to still have green, lush boreal areas, and people are going to migrate to Canada because that's the only place you can better live, and Russia. So,
well, pretty soon we're going to be able to grow coffee here.
Right, Victoria. Exactly.
Chocolate.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I guess that's a positive, but not really a positive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It
is scary.
It's scary that that's happening. Well, if Canada becomes tropical, I'll be happy with tropical Canada, but
right.
I'll miss the snow.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Often the belief that investing in green technology and lessening our impact is it's a dramatic change to start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back. Can you share some small-scale efforts that people can do to make a big impact?
Yes. So first off, I would have to say we should think in terms like it is a big impact, or it's going to be stressful on us changing. Because then, if it's not as stressful, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. If you think it's worse than it's going to be, type of thing. Like, okay, what's the worst thing going to happen to me? I stop eating meat, or I walk to work 2 days, or get on the public transport instead of driving my car. And then you go, okay, this is not bad. I met some people on the train or whatever. But more to your question and the answer to your question. Again, cutting back on your meat consumption, learning how to grow your own food, calculating up the amount of waste that you have in your household, in your community. And you can make this a fun thing to do. Like I said, if you got a family of 4 or something, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Here's our starting point. This is our electric bill. This is our water bill. Let's make it a game. How much have we used? Okay. How can we get that down to 75% of what we're having? And, instead of taking a 20-minute shower, you're taking a 10-minute shower. Or maybe you don't realize you're taking a 50-minute shower because, I have to clean my hair and the water's running and really not doing anything, or washing the dishes. There's so many ways that we as humans in the developed nations waste things without even understanding or realizing that it's being wasted. Lights on in one room, you're not even in there. The TV and the radio playing at the same time while people are on their smartphones or something like that.
Yeah.
It's because we take it for granted that it's there and it's always going to be there. But it's really wasteful. Yeah. If you're not using it, if you're consuming it but not really using it, you're keeping someone else from having that benefit of the electricity or the water or the vegetables. Worldwide, we waste half the amount of food that we produce. And yet we have people starving around the world. That to me is ludicrous. I don't understand how that's a thing, So
it is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah. What are you eating? What are you wasting? Are you eating all the food on your plate? Are you just eating it because your eyes are bigger than your stomach, type of thing?
Yeah.
So we need to start looking at it. And I say the best way is to make it a game with you and your friends or your family, because then you have some accountability. So, okay, I got to, the competition thing. All right, I got to beat Johnny today because as opposed to just, I'm going to change because it's good for the planet. No, people don't do that.
No, they change because they have a vested interest in.
Exactly. I don't know if I answered the question.
You did. You did. I think my wife and we moved here from Nova Scotia 9 years ago. The first thing we did a week later, we got rid of our car.
Wow.
And we've been without a car ever since. If we need to go up island, we can rent a car for a couple days.
There you go.
And it's not hard to do it. You just have to have a valid license.
Right.
And you can do that. The whole time we've been here, we've been recycling when we could.
Great.
And we bought ourselves some bikes so we can ride the bicycles. And one of the greatest things here is in this city is they provide area for bikers to
I love it,
to do it. And there's the old railway roads. They turned it into a trail for people to bike on, so they're not out on the streets the whole time. They can get some nature in, and like the Lochside Trail is very beautiful here.
Nice.
In the Yukon, forget the name of the place. I'll have to put that in the show notes. This youth program they created from the old trails that they used to migrate for hunting. They created mountain bike trails.
Nice.
And it's a draw, and so people can do all kinds of things to kind of make a change.
Yeah, and if you want to give someone like a selfish reason to do it, like let's say the pocketbook, like you mentioned your car, you gave away your car. I mean, if people have, like, say, a gas car, there's low-tech technology out there that can increase your gas mileage and help clean the air. It's called hydrogen on demand, HHO technology. So you can put a hydrogen converter in your car that runs off of distilled water and breaks the electrolytes from water to hydrogen to oxygen, and infuses the hydrogen into your car. It makes your gas burn more efficiently and can increase your gas mileage between 40 and 60%. And that's a fact. So, and it costs you as little as $100 depending on, what you put in there.
There you go. That's a huge bit right there.
Yeah, simple and no change in your lifestyle. So,
have you looked at any of the new solar technology?
Yes, I have. And well, I'm really excited about the perovskite solar cells that a couple of people are working on in the States and in Poland. Because it doesn't use silicone, and it's supposed to like absorb 40% more or 60 something astronomical, and more lightweight and thin and all that. And that could really be a game changer. Also, I was really keen on that guy who was doing the solar roadways a while back, but I don't know what happened to it. I know France is working on it a little bit, where you can use roadways to either generate energy as things go across it, but also use them as solar collectors, which, if you think about it, really makes sense, because in our urban areas, so much of our landscape is covered by, concrete and cement and all that stuff. And why not use it to collect solar and put it right back into your grid, not to the power company's grid, but something that benefits you.
True.
So I know that's just around the corner, and that could really, really change things for humanity.
Is it using the passive solar heat from the concrete itself?
No, it's actually solar collectors.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That are made out of tempered glass that don't crack under the weight of vehicles. Yeah.
See, that's genius.
And another genius, and I'll give this to any of your listeners to go ahead and capitalize on, because I'm not going to do it because I'm too busy. You need to create. I mean, I was a Gilligan's Island fan when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to always get on that bike to make the radio work.
Yeah.
Just imagine if the gyms around the country, and the United States is big on people going to like gyms to work out instead of going out in nature. All those people in there working out are just energy producers. If you want them to be, you can create these machines, the treadmill machines or the lifting the weights machines. Every time you do something, it's creating energy through generation and then storing in a battery, whatever. I mean, if I owned a workout room, gyms, I can't remember what they call them now, but I would do that, and then make people pay to come in my gym, but also paying my electric bills too.
Yeah.
So to me, that technology it's there. Just somebody needs to go ahead and do it. You could become a billionaire overnight creating that.
Very, very easily. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
The climate change is the biggest threat to biodiversity in the world.
100%. The
average person can get overwhelmed by the whole supply chain thing. And can you share any small-scale efforts that can kind of contribute to bettering this situation?
Yeah, I think sort of like we talked about before, if people slow down a little bit and say, okay, I'm not going to look at this on a global level. I'm looking at it at a local level, right? And the totality of the circumstances as it affects my world, So my community, my family, whatever, what can we do on a small level to make a big change? And if everybody did that, there would be a big change. And so you have to think like that. Don't think, oh, I'm just one person. I can't fix it all. And I have a job and da, 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 da. You start making excuses on why you want to contribute, then you won't. And you just paralyze yourself. But I think if you stop and think about things and think about the consequences of not acting, especially if you have children, how hard it's going to be on them. You want to leave them a better life than you had. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case if we keep going the way we're going. So you look at, again, what are we doing as a family or I'm doing as a person that's not helping the situation? Again, energy consumption, water waste, food consumption, or, food waste, how I get to work. Can I change that at all? There's some good days where I can actually walk or ride my bicycle or not take the car or maybe carpool with somebody who lives down the street. Things like that. And those are also feel-good things. And that's what humans need. We need to feel good about things we do. And I think if we start that, then it becomes second nature and then it's not work anymore. And then you go, we can fix this. It's doable. Okay. Yeah, I got this.
In terms of biodiversity, the plant-based is great. Plant-based diet is great. But we have the issue of monocrops as well, which...
Right. That's not good.
There, in Colorado, there's a group of farmers who found that their land was becoming unviable. So one of them went to Mexico for a vacation and saw...
Biochar?
Yeah. And saw it and said, okay, I can do this on my farm. Brought back that idea, and his farm was making less than $60,000 a year, and he was failing. And just 2 years ago, he was making like $200,000 and $300,000 a year, and full diverse crops, rotating crops.
Yeah.
It all helped to rebuild his land, and his land is now viable because he's growing multiple crops. Are there ways that we can kind of, as consumers, push these industries into doing more diverse crops?
Yeah. So the biochar example you gave is a good one. And again, local or mom and pop's farmers can totally do that. They should do it. So like we said before, giving them a selfish reason to do the right thing because they're going to benefit from it. I was in Colombia visiting a coffee plantation that was a permaculture farm, and she showed me around and she was getting a better yield too because she was not doing monoculture farming. So the thing about consumers pushing industry to do stuff where we are lacking is we still think with our pocketbooks, right? Oh, well, it's going to be more because in California, we try to pass a law that the industry had to label and tell us what's in this food.
Yeah.
and it failed because the industry lobbied and said, well, if we put these labels on, it's going to cost you more money and blah, blah, blah. And so people, I don't want to pay more money, even though it's healthier and better for me to know. So they voted it down. So it's really getting people out of the mindset that, hey, I'm losing something.
Yeah.
And money. And so we can get people in the mindset thinking I'm losing something by not knowing this. I'm losing something by them not providing me with food that's built or grown in a permaculture environment and et cetera, then I'm not going to buy it. So right now in supermarkets, I don't know about in Canada, but here you've got your organic section and it's always more expensive. People aren't going to buy that. I mean, people who care, I'm going to spend money because it's worth it. Other people, no, I'm going to buy the cheapest.
Yeah.
So if you still have that cheap option, we're not going to do it.
It's true.
And I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I'm trying to answer your question, like, what can we do to put pressure on? They push back so hard when you put it on the ballot with, their lobbying campaign. It makes it almost insurmountable. It's just people have to be educated enough to look through that. So I would say, again, totality of the circumstances, we have to start by an education campaign. Before we even try to push something like that forward, We have to educate people so they know. So when this comes up and then they get this fear tactics things by the industry trying to get them not to do it because it's more money for them to spend, then we go, no, I want you to do this because, and if you don't, I'm not going to buy your food. And we have to stay with that, say, I'm not going to buy the cheaper food. And if I start buying the other food, guess what? That price is going to go down because competition, supply and demand. We just have to be able to wade through that. Sure. So sorry, but there's no easy answer around that on what we can do as consumers to get the farming industry to change.
No.
It has to be, because veganism has picked up only because people decided they're going to stop eating as much meat. And so now you see companies, we're offering vegan options and vegetarian options, and et cetera. They're doing that because it's advantageous to them monetarily. They don't really care what we eat as long as we buy something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I've worked in the food industry most of my life, and I've seen a lot of changes. I've also seen a lot of waste, particularly in grocery stores. They're one of the biggest wasters of food. Our food regulations kind of compound that as well. We were only allowed to keep.
Oh yes, expirations and all that.
And in a lot of cases, expiration dates can be expanded by a week or more on certain things,
right?
And it wouldn't affect the health of the person eating it.
Correct.
The fermentation is one of the best things for your gut, and
Agreed.
If we ate more fermented foods, we'd probably be healthier. It's how our bodies are geared to kind of digest food. Our guts are literally compost makers. So we need to look at how we treat food in our daily lives. Like eating everything on your plate. Yes, eat smaller portions.
Right.
So sure. I think we've gone off topic a little bit, but it is still within that realm.
No, I agree. And I want to add to that just a little bit. It's sort of off topic, but on topic as far as what we can do to get the industry to change, but not. It's like we need to encourage the pollinators to stay around because we are losing insects at an alarming rate. We always have been since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but it's even worse. I mean, like, if you leave your porch lights on, then you should use a spectrum of light that's not going to attract them because they will sit there and fly around your light all night and die.
Yeah.
And those are pollinators, not just the bees, the honeybees people think about. It's all those insects. And then, I don't want them. So you start spraying, you kill more of them. Those things are actually keeping you alive by pollinating your food. And I would say, for people like yourself that maybe live in a somewhat rural area, you should encourage native bees to come back. And native bees don't necessarily build hives like honeybees. They're solitary and they just dig a hole in a piece of wood, lay egg, and they leave. And they don't sting. They don't do anything. They may not look like a bee to you.
Yeah. Right?
But they do so much to keep us alive. So we need, again, totality of the circumstances. Keep those things in mind. And if the supermarkets aren't going to grow what you want, then grow a little garden. You can put a little flower box on your condominium and grow herbs that you're going to supplement, and you'll enjoy it. It's like, wow, look what I made. So things like that.
You get health benefits from looking after plants.
Yes, you do.
The psyche of doing that it's beneficial to look after yourself, to grow these things. They give you pleasure, so that lessens your stress levels. So it's a snowball effect. Once you start doing it, you start saying, I feel good doing this.
Right. Then you want to show it off because we're humans.
Yeah.
But, even if you didn't want to buy the seeds, you could, like, if you go buy carrots, save the top and plant it. That will grow carrots, or the lettuce that was so expensive, the romaine lettuce that you didn't want to buy because it was like $4 a pound or something. Save the bottom and replant it, and you'll have some more.
Really quickly.
So
we
Yeah.
At work, we were processing a bunch of herbs for to go out on the floor, and there was a radish stem in there, and normally we just throw it out, but I saved it. We brought it home and planted it, and it grew. So
right,
and just
nature finds a way.
Life finds a way to. Often people use snowfall in warm regions as an example why climate change isn't real. Can you refute this for us, please?
100%. So the first thing, again, going back to education, you have to define what climate change is, what the weather is, or climate versus weather is what I'm getting at. And so you need to understand that climate is what the earth experiences over a long period of time, and weather is what you and I experience on a daily basis. So snowfall is weather. That's something that's happening today, tomorrow, whatever, but it's not the climate. But the climate has caused that snow to fall. I just lost my train of thought. I was going to give an analogy. Okay, so here's a good one. In California, we love our sunny days. And even in the winter, if it's a nice sunny day, let's say 20 degrees Celsius or 70 Fahrenheit, I'm like, oh, the weather's so good down here. I love it. I love being in California. And then if it gets cold, we complain. But we look at it and we know that it's not supposed to be that warm this time of year based upon past experience. It's unseasonably warm or unseasonably cold. That's because the climate is affecting the weather that we're feeling. So when a person says, I have a snowball, like that congressman, the senator did in Washington, D.C., like 5-6 years back, he came in with a snowball and says, they say the weather's changing, well, look, it's warming. Why do I got snow? It's snowing right out. He literally did this. I could not believe that he had the audacity to do that. And then people, oh yeah, he must be right. So 2 things happened around that time. One, scientists were calling climate change global warming because the planet is warming over time. It's causing a warming effect because that's why we're trying to keep the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And people, based on your question, are saying, well, if it's warming, why is it snowing? So then it was changed to climate change because it's just a little softer on the ear. The climate has changed, but still you have to understand what climate is versus the weather. So my refutal on this, my rebuttal is it's weather that you're seeing. It's not climate. If you want to see the climate, you have to go to climate maps and see the change over time. And then ask me your snowball question. But you have to be open to the truth too. You can't just say, well, that's, It's not. No, you got to be open to the truth. Climate versus weather.
Sorry about the siren. We've had.
I didn't hear it. No problem.
The impact of COVID has really made trouble here.
Well, that brings up another point. If we cared as much about the climate as we did about COVID, we would have solved this problem by now.
Yeah.
And again, because COVID is in our face, and you can point to people that you know of, or you know of someone who has passed away because of COVID, but you cannot point to someone who has died of climate change. And that's the problem.
It's difficult because climate change can kill you in many ways.
Many ways.
Point of fact, during the flooding, 2 people died. And now a child is an orphan because of climate change. And
but it's written down as drowning, though.
They drowned in the flooding. It's very sad, and I hope that child the child is with family, so I think they'll have a better outcome. But still, they've lost their parents.
Right.
And
sad.
See, normally we can't give examples like this. That's why I had to make that example, because that is one that just happened this year due to the massive flooding. We had a crisis. Many people it's going to be years before they are able to have a normal life. We lost something in the tune of 1,500 bee hives as well, which is going to impact the growing season.
Yeah.
And we need to really look at climate with the direct the same interest to solve the problem as COVID.
Yes, I agree.
The BC government is doing a wolf call to protect the caribou herds, which are endangered. But forest fires and deforestation are far more prevalent a problem to the caribou than the wolves. Could you give some advice for the BC government on how to better protect the caribou?
So I don't know if they'll listen to me.
We can try.
As a wildlife biologist, we've been, we had the same issues over time in California or in the United States, because like I said, I went to school in Missoula, Montana, studied wildlife biology, and I advocated to bring the wolves back, to let them do what they're supposed to do. It was a lot of big, and I was a student. I'm not saying any clout, but I'm just saying the system was set up to stay in balance, and it was human activity that took it out of balance, either through taking out a top predator, taking over land that animals used to graze, that's changing their habits to make them adapt to something else, to us. So in BC, I think you're talking about the woodland caribou. Is that the one that you guys have up there? Yeah. So habitat loss in most cases is the main reason why ungulate or prey species start losing their numbers. And the response of governments always is, oh, well, let's kill the predators. It's never, let's cut back human activity in the area. Let's see what we're doing to impact, as opposed to let's take out a predator because then that'll keep them in check. But while we're at it, just keep the hunting. I don't know if you guys hunt with the caribou, but so let's keep the hunters happy and da 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 da. Again, it's political. It's not biological, because they know the same thing I do. It's not like they read some other textbook or understand population dynamics differently than I do. If wolves are pack animals, all right. So for people who don't know, so you can't just call two wolves out of the pack and say, okay, we reduce the numbers. No, you got to kill the whole pack if you want to make an impact for them not to go eat the woodland caribou, because they're still going to go hunt the caribou if they've got a pack, if the caribou are in their face. And that's the other thing. Has the BC government done statistics on see how many caribou the wolves take versus their other prey? How big of an impact do the wolves have? These are studies that I'm sure they've done, but these are questions that the average person should ask. How much of an impact do they have on them? And if they once a month, there's like one caribou taken. Okay. Is that really hurting the population? Now, if it's like every day they kill 5 caribou, okay, we're talking something different here. But again, what are the other impacts that affect the caribou? And you just mentioned one: forest fires, loss of habitat, diseases because of those things, because they don't grazing, no nesting or not nesting, birthing areas for the caribou, all that stuff impacts. And so you culling a pack of wolves, because that's what it's going to take, probably is not going to help. In fact, it's probably going to hurt, because, and I raise my hand and say, I told you so a long time ago, before I knew what I was talking about. It's proven now that when you bring wolves back in the area, they affect the population of all the species in the area positively.
Yes.
Right? So if you call out that pack of wolves, maybe there's going to be an increase of rabbits, and now the rabbit's going to eat more food and cause this to happen. There's such a chain of events that could occur because you're taking out something that doesn't need to be taken out.
Yeah.
Right. So totality of the circumstances, you really need to look at it and see why are we want to protect the woodland caribou? I know they're endangered, but why are they critically endangered, where like if they have a bad winter, they're all going to go extinct? Or is it just their numbers are lower than what we'd like them to be because we still have hunting activity or something like that? And I don't know that you hunt them, but I'm saying stuff like that. You got to really look at it and say, what can we do to put this back in balance by taking human activity out of it? Because that is not the thread, but the link between all of this on why things are happening is human activity. So what have we done to cause the caribou to lose their numbers? And, now climate change is also a part of it because you're going to have more forest fires and loss of habitat. So what can we do? Because by taking humans out of the equation, that has the least amount of impact on every other species except us. Okay. So I think that's an easier call. Not politically, but biologically, it's an easier call. Just take the humans out.
Yeah. Take the human equation out.
Yeah.
To that point, David Suzuki, have you heard of him?
I love him. I want to interview him for a documentary that I want to do. So if you got any connections, please connect me to him.
I'm going to try and get him on for a show about deforestation. They're doing clear cutting of old growth forest here. And that's another thing that's impacting the caribou that people aren't talking about. Yeah. When you clear cut a forest, you're destroying not just the forest, but the habitat for all of the animals.
Right.
And
there was a study recently done about the fungi, how they're communicating in the old growth forest. I don't know if you read. Yeah.
It's mycelial.
Yeah.
Mycelial network will send food through its network to trees and plants that need a boost. It helps to regulate a lot of pollination, and it has so many benefits to the forest. And I think humanity as a whole needs to start taking stock that we're part of a system.
Agreed.
And we've been fighting against the system for so long that we're now destroying it. And we need to start to get back to, animists have it right. Everything has spirit, and everything is important to the whole. And we need to respect that system.
Right.
And that's where climate change is a result of us being idiots about that connection. We think we're somehow above it.
Yes.
And we're not.
Yes.
We're
not.
We're in it. We're in the system. Even our planet is in a system.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Climate depression is a recognized depression now. Can you give any advice to people struggling to find hope in this fight?
Yes. I'll start by talking about COVID depression. Again, something people can relate to because COVID is a little more in people's faces. When COVID hit down here, I was a avid jazz musician and I used to go out and play, and I loved it. COVID hit. I caught COVID in March. Afterwards, I had no desire to play whatever, because I wasn't with people. And people weren't coming to my home. I do Airbnb, so it was just me. And I realized, you know what? I like people more than I thought. Yeah. But it was a choice whether I saw people or not. And now that choice was taken away from me. And so the young people, the Gen Z people right now feel that same way. They see the data because it's out there, and they realize that doom and gloom is on the horizon and that my generation is not doing anything but talk to fix things. And they're saying, well, what do I have to look forward to? And when you come with that defeatist attitude, you tend to just shut down and say, well, what's the point? And so what I would say to them in a matter of hope, I says, yes, we totally messed up and we're not really treating you guys right. We say we are, but we're really not doing right by you. But that doesn't mean you can't, because there's nothing stopping you as a group. And I seriously, encourage this. I'm saying this hoping there's 20 somethings listening to me right now. I encourage all of you to get together and change the system. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you from running from office or putting policies in effect. The only thing is you may not know how, but there's people like me, older, that do. Partner up with people like us who really care and come up with a plan how to change it now, because tomorrow is too late. and we're just going to say we're sorry.
Yeah.
And that's not going to do you any good. So if you have something to look forward to get up in the morning, it makes it easier. You say, okay, we can fix this because there is still time. I mean, it's not going to be like it was, but there is still time to make you have a really, a good life.
Yeah.
Right. But you have to take charge because we're not going to do it.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The young people, well, really, the system's been kind of stacked against them, but really, they are the ones that have the power to change.
Exactly.
We need to do more education. That's kind of why we're doing the podcast, is to bring stories that aren't heard to the surface, and we need to really take stock and help young people know they have a voice. They're allowed to speak loudly and say, we don't want this. We want to change and create change. What would make the biggest impact for your projects right now if you had all of the youth in the world helping you?
Oh, that would be great. We would be able to move forward like with the Tiger Project. And I actually took a group of young people with me one time from a school in Los Angeles. And, I thought that they were going to have a terrible time. Thought they were going to like miss the city. It was the best experience of their life. So they told me, because 80% of Americans don't have a passport and never been outside the USA. So their perspective on the world is small. So if people were to join that program and also ClimateCon and then get to know people from around the world that really want to make a difference. And now it's like, hey, there's somebody else there like me. I'm not so weird. Maybe the people at school who poo-poo me all the time because I want to recycle or do this, maybe they're wrong. Maybe I'm okay. Because this is family now. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm part of a community. Yeah. And it's not so hopeless because there's more of us out there than I thought. We're just not organized. So yeah, if they were to join my cause, my programs, and then maybe branch off and start their own, and it would be wonderful.
Create a snowball effect of change.
Yes, exactly. And I'm 100%. I would quit everything I'm doing right now. If let's say 100 young people called and said, hey, I want to make a difference. How do we get into the political system and change stuff? I would totally help them do it because that's what it's going to take.
I think a lot of people are disenfranchised to government.
Right. For a reason. Like you said, change is inevitable, but it is slow. And unfortunately, because of climate change, we don't have that luxury. We don't have the time. This is a now thing.
Are there any projects now that you're working on that are going to be coming out in the next year?
There's a film project I'm working on with some people in Portugal. It's about climate change. It's called We Don't Deserve to Be Here.
Okay.
But I'll just give you the premise. I'm not going to give you the ending, but basically the world finally realizes that climate change is real, but it's too late. And so what they're trying to do now in this film, a short film, is to set up cryosleep technology that the Japanese have been working on and collect all these seeds and DNA that the governments around the world have been saving because they knew it was coming. And so they're like, okay, this is our plan. It's too late for us right now, but we're going to put a bunch of scientists in cryosleep and have them come back and reseed the earth. And I'm just going to leave it there.
That's cool.
That's wrong. Yeah. So that's what I want to work on because, it's sort of, there's still time now, or you could try to do this future that these people are trying to do because this is not a conspiracy thing I'm trying to say, but we're trying to inhabit Mars for a reason because we need a plan B.
We do.
Planet B.
Is there anything else that you'd like to promote?
I don't know. I guess I would just encourage people to stay positive and vigilant. Don't give up. And if people provide you with an opinion different than what you heard today or other places, then challenge them on it because you empower people if you don't challenge them, if you know they're saying something wrong. You don't have to do it in a bad way. Just say, oh, that's interesting. Where'd you get that information? Just challenge them on it, because other people that's in that group that's listening may not be as strong or know the facts as you do. And they may believe this person like, oh, climate change is a hoax. It was created by such and such, Yeah, we don't need that. We need more people to stay positive and like, okay, if it's a hoax and we didn't create it, let's just fix it anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
Whatever it takes, because your children, and I don't have kids, but if you have kids, you need to think about leaving them a better piece of land than your parents left you, because we have the knowledge. We understand. Our parents didn't know as much as we do. Information was kept from them. I mean, the information was there, but now we know. I could even forgive the oil companies for polluting way back when, because they didn't know, but now they know, and they still want to do it, and that's wrong. So we can't support that. Don't give them your money. Like in the States back in the day when Watergate, people just say, don't buy books from crooks. Well, it's the same type of thing. Don't let them profit on something that they're doing wrong. So stay encouraged and just get in the fight. That's what I have to say.
That's excellent. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for coming on with me.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
That was our show with John Brooks. I loved talking to him and hope to talk to him again soon. Please support the Nepal Tiger Project, and if you can check out his YouTube channel, please subscribe. He's a great guy, and I love what he's doing. We are dedicating a month to Earth Day this year, as it is vitally important to reverse climate change. This series is geared to help you make choices which will help the planet recover and heal. Please join us next time with David Millark of the Ancient Tree Archive.